Petterson is the author of 5 different novels. With the release of Outstealing Horses, Petterson won several awards, including the Independent Foreign Fiction Prize and the 2007 Impact Award. He is also well known throughout the literary community. Mr. Petterson, thank you for joining us today. Would you please give us an overview of your book, Outstealing Horses?
Outstealing Horses is about a man named Trond. When he is in his 60s, he builds a new life in the isolated woods of Norway. Soon he meets his neighbor, a person from his past. Once he meets him, he recalls the summer that he spent in a cabin with his father. And as events of his present life become so similar to his past, he recalls the summer that changed his life.
May I ask you, how did you get the idea to write a novel about a man reflecting on his childhood?
It didn't exactly start as a specific idea. Really, all that I had in mind was a closing scene, where Mom buys her son his first suit, and that there was a father who loved his son.
Do all of your books start this vaguely?
Personally, I hate plots. I just like to write sentence by sentence.
Do the ideas just come to you then while you're writing? Or can you remember any specific moments that stand out to you from writing Outstealing Horses?
Yeah, the ideas do just come. They come as I need them. I think it allows for a better story. Instead of planning it all out and leaving no room for changes. In regard to specific moments, there actually is one. I could picture these two faces of these fathers not looking at each other. But then I had to come up with a reason why wouldn't they look at each other. It was because this book takes place just after World War II. But then, because it's war, I had to do research for this book, and I hate research.
Well, however much you don't like plots, this book really seems to have one. Any comments on how that came about?
Yes, this book does have a plot. I realized this when I was partially through writing it. But I wound up liking the characters too much that I didn't really want to change anything.
Another question. The main character seems to live alone. Was there any reason why you chose to make him and most of the book, all of it, take place in such an isolated setting?
Actually, my own life influenced this. My wife and I, we live in a remote village in Norway, near the border of Sweden. And the majority of the book takes place in a couple of isolated Norwegian villages. Personally, I'm not afraid of small communities. You have to decide not to be paranoid.
Not surprising, really, that your own life influenced the book in some way, though it's interesting that it would be in that aspect. Could you please tell me more about the main characters in Outstealing Horses?
Well, there's Trond. He's the story's narrator. The story covers him when he is in his late 60s. As well as the summer when he was 15. Trond's not very socially adept. He often mimics the people that he looks up to, such as his father and his friend John. When he's older, Trond lives isolated, but in the end, he realizes that isolation isn't the best way to live.
You mentioned a neighbor or friend, John. Who is this John, and how does John's relationship with Trond go?
Well, John is Trond's neighbor when he lived in the cabin when he was 15. John and Trond's father were in World War II together, so that they actually go a bit back. John actually has a couple of younger brothers. They're twins, Odd and Lars. A big part of the book that draws John into the story is when John accidentally leaves his rifle loaded, and his brothers find it, and Lars accidentally shoots Odd. But later, but because of this, John it really hurts him. He feels so guilty over this, he leaves and goes out into sea.
Wow, that's a powerful scene. That must have affected the whole community in the book. What about John's mother? Who was she?
John's mother was actually in town when this happened, and John's father didn't even tell her on the whole ride back, not until she returned. Because of this, she was really melancholy and sad throughout the rest of the book. Though she does happen to have an affair with Trond's father, which actually started back from during World War II. And Tron didn't know this, but he slowly realizes it as things changed in the plot.
Wait, John's mother and Tron's father having a relationship? What about Tron's mother?
Tron's mother is actually in the city when this all happens with Tron's sister. The cabin really is just sort of a summer home for Tron and his father to sort of bond.
But the whole book takes place there? That's interesting. I was wondering, how does this title, Out Stealing Horses, relate to the book?
The title is actually mentioned about 3 times throughout the book, each relating in its own unique way. The first is when John shows up at Tron's door and says, "We're going to go out stealing horses," even though they're just going out and riding some neighbor's horses. They just call it that to make it more exciting. Then later, previously, when it was still wartime, out stealing horses was a secret code that Tron's father had come up with. And then near the end of the book, Tron jokingly accuses his father of stealing horses, even though they're just borrowing the horses to go out on a ride together.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Mr. Petterson. It has definitely added to my understanding of this book, Out Stealing Horses.
My pleasure.